Hello, good evening, everyone. It's been a while, but welcome to Black Health. Let's talk about it with D Moss and myself, Justin Yard. Been a crazy couple months within our community and as well just the world. We definitely want to make sure we touch base with everybody when it came to the areas of Black health because the craziness was centered around health and things in our community that's been affecting us for 20, 30, 40 years. And so we definitely want to come on and just give a little bit information, you know what I mean, and inform the people about some of the conditions that we're suffering from and how we can change them. So I know that usually we have a special guest, but I think this is warranted now that we just really talk about one of the many pre-existing conditions that has been plaguing our community since I want to say 20, 30 years. And that is type 2 diabetes. And I thought like we discussed everything, man. I thought that like, all right, we got this all down packed. You know what I mean? We gave the people a lot of information, but what I realized about our people is we need constant reminders about our health and what we need to be doing on a daily basis. And type 2 diabetes is one of those diagnoses that is a lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's I have seen it change in a lot of people, but 70% of what we see today is a lifestyle disease, and us trying to change our lifestyle and understanding what that means is so important. So we're gonna go into it. I'm gonna kind of touch on some topics today and really get into what you can do on a day-to-day basis to help not combat but manage it yourself. And I think one of the things I want to start off with is you are responsible, right? And so you are responsible for your health. And a lot of us go to our physicians, our primary cares, emergency rooms, and things of that nature. But we have to understand that we're in charge and we control some of our health outcomes. And when we're in a situation such as this, where they govern a pandemic and with a virus such as coronavirus that is really attacking people with pre-existing conditions such as diabetes, you have to take control and you are responsible. No matter what your doctor is telling you, no matter what the medication you're on, you're responsible for a lot of your health outcomes. And Dia, anytime you can interject. But
Well, let's back up just a little bit. You started out talking about, first of all, my name is D Moss and welcome to Black Health. That's Justin Yard. If you don't know already, I'm sure everybody knows who he is. He's a celebrity in the health field.
Yeah, right.
Let's talk about what exactly is diabetes. So you mentioned type 2 diabetes and some of the issues and some of the afflictions that have been negatively impacting our community health-wise. And the crazy part is, it's like once you hit the United States, it doesn't matter whether you're whether you're from Africa, whether you're from the UK, whether you're from the Caribbean, or whether you're from the States. This thing called diabetes begins to afflict us once we get here. And the thing is, a lot of people have no idea what diabetes actually is until they go to a doctor for a checkup and they discover that they now have diabetes. And then the doctor sits them down. So Justin wants to give everybody a head start. Tell you what it is before it happens, and the symptoms you may recognize, and some of the things you can do to alleviate that. So can you just break down to people what exactly is diabetes?
What I would consider diabetes, or what your doctor would consider diabetes, is a disease of blood sugar. So you are usually when it comes to your sugars, you're in the 200s, hundreds range, right? And your body has a problem with now governing your sugars or regulating your sugars, right? And so what that means is sometimes your sugars are really high in your blood and your body has a hard time now putting those sugars where they should be, which is in your cells, your muscle cells, your liver cells, whatever the case may be. And so it's something that could be kind of seen with high blood sugar. And that's the first thing you're going to hear from your doctor is, okay, you have high blood sugar. All right. And then you're going to hear something else called the A1C, which is the average of your blood sugar. And that's going to be high. And what that means is that number is usually I believe is 7 and above, and 6 and above rather. So 6 and above is usually a high blood sugar or A1C, and then the blood sugar is like in the 200s. Some people I've seen with 300s and 400s, and those are kind of dangerous levels. But it's just a disease that's really all about high blood sugars and then your body's inability to regulate those blood sugars.
Okay. Now my sister recently passed away. She had oh my God, she had diabetes.
That too, yeah.
Bad case. To the point where it brought on what eventually brought on the transition period. So they often talked about blood glucose. Now, when you talk about the glucose, is that also what they refer to as the sugars?
Yeah. So anytime you eat any carbohydrate like bread, pasta, Snickers, whatever, it's getting broken down into glucose for your body, right? And so it goes from that bread, and when it gets to your bloodstream, it becomes glucose. So those glucose, that's how they're going to measure how high the sugars are. So when you hear sugars, you really hear glucose. Those are synonymous. When it comes to the medical field, they just say glucose.
Okay. All right. So I know you have some things you want to talk about as it pertains to diabetes. I just want to give people a background so they at least when they hear the term diabetes, they're familiar with what it is. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So what let me ask you a quick question before you get into your thing. What exactly is a normal glucose level for a diabetic patient?
I can't that's a very clinical like I can't give that number because that's a more a clinical thing, right? And so it can vary person to person too. So I mean, if you have diabetes, then they'll be okay with like what 100s, 200s if you're used to being in 400s. They'll be like, okay, you're getting lower. It depends on the person, right? And so I think a normal person that's not diabetic is like 90 straight in the morning. So it varies on not only the person but the time of day. So if you ate right just now, you ate a carb, your sugar is going to be higher. Obviously, an hour later, your sugar is going to be higher. But first thing in the morning is usually when they test your sugar levels. The first thing in the morning, not after you ate. So it's usually like you should be at like under 100 first thing in the morning, for what I remember. But for a diabetic patient, I can't call that because that's a clinical response, more for your physician telling you what your normal levels are.
Okay. And that was my only question. So I'll jump in. Yeah. I'll jump in here and there where necessary. Since I know nothing about it, so I'll be asking all the layman questions. Is that cool?
Yep. I need that because I sometimes go too crazy, as you know. But I want people to know they're responsible. And so I realized because my dad, quick story, my dad has diabetes since I was born, it feels like. You know what I mean? He's in Barbados, which is the amputee capital of the world. Okay. So the reason why that is because a lot of people that are getting their legs amputated is a byproduct of having diabetes for a long time. So they end up cutting off your leg because of neuropathy and some neurological situations that happen as a result of having diabetes for so long. So I'm talking to him, and he's had diabetes for a long time. So that means he's been with this doctor for some time now. And he was like, I was explaining to him his situation because he's like, I'm going to modify my diet. I've been doing some things, but I feel sick. And then I started breaking down diabetes, and he was just like, oh, that's exactly how I'm feeling. That's exactly how I'm feeling at this time. I was like, oh, your doctor didn't explain this to you? When you do your diet modification, these things are going to happen. He was like, no. I was like, how long have you had this doctor? He was like, for the last like 10 years. So I realized that the doctors know I'm not in place. I'm not a medical professional. I don't have a medical license at all. And so I'm thinking that they're giving information that you can get in a book to their patients, like and maybe in a layman's terms, but they're not. And so I want you to know that when I give you this information, you're not responsible for your life. So you can't say I was never informed. The information is given to you. Now you have to do the adaptations to your lifestyle. So when it comes to diabetes, I like to explain it so simple. I always see diabetes differently than a doctor may, because when you go to a doctor and you have diabetes, you might go to an endocrinologist. Okay. And so that's a person that studies hormones. Like You know what I mean? They study hormones and they are hormone specialists, for lack of a better word. So they call it endocrinologists for the endocrine system. They study hormones. They know hormones, right? And so diabetes is a disease that is saying that your hormones are not working effectively. That for me is irresponsible, D. So I think that means that you can't control your situation. When I say your body isn't working, that means that you can't do nothing to fix it. So then when you go to endocrinologist, he's telling you, yo, your hormone, the hormone that governs diabetes is insulin, right? So insulin is the hormone that governs diabetes, really, okay? Or your sugar levels in your body. And so you go to endocrinologist, they're saying, yo, the insulin is not working correctly. And so you think that you have to be on medication because your body's not doing what it's supposed to do. I don't see it as that. All right. Coming from a person that had pre-diabetes. So I don't see it as that. I see it as a lifestyle disease governed by sugar. Very simple. So first thing is first, you are responsible for that because you are responsible for what you're eating. And when you're eating anything, if it has sugar, you're going to have some situations of high blood sugar, low blood sugar. So first of all, don't just look at it as I have to go to my endocrinologist to fix this. No, you are in control of it. How so? Real simple. Anytime you eat anything like that has sugar, bread, pasta, you know what I mean? Your honey buns, your sodas, any of those things, they are going to do two things. They are going to bring energy to your body, but by way of bringing your sugar levels up. All right. So they're going to rise your sugar levels up. So as soon as you eat something like bread, pasta, soda, juice, you're going to drive your sugars up. The reason is because those are called simple sugars. All right. And if I'm going too crazy, tell me, D. But those
Nope,
are
you're good.
simple sugars. So simple sugars don't have any true nutritional value in them, right? No fiber, no vitamin, essential minerals, nothing. So the problem with that is they don't have to get broken down. They go straight to the bloodstream. When you have things that have vitamin, essential minerals, fiber, and things like that, what they do, they take longer to digest, and then they don't go straight to your bloodstream. They go to your bloodstream very slowly. The problem with diabetes is you're eating simple sugars that go to your bloodstream real fast and spike your sugars up fast. So it don't matter if you got sugars in your bloodstream. That's not a problem. When you have too much at one time because you're eating simple sugars, right? Like your breads, your pastas, your snickerdoodles, whatever, that's gonna spike your sugars, right? Your sugars go crazy. And one thing your body hates is high levels of sugar. It doesn't like it at all. So that's why it brings in insulin. So you hear about insulin. Insulin's job is just to put those sugars in the right place because, again, your bloodstream hates high levels of sugar. So it's not going to do anything but put those sugars in the right place. And again, sugar is not bad. You need sugar. Right now, you're using sugar. When you speak, when you're thinking, your body needs sugar, but it just hates high levels. So insulin comes in, stores those sugars where they're supposed to be. All right. So a normal day, you wake up, we eat that bacon, egg, and cheese, right? On the croissant bad boy thing, majiggy, right? So now you got the croissant. That's a simple sugar. Boom. You eat that, that spikes up your sugar. You don't even wait 20 minutes. You drink what? An orange juice with that.
Yep.
Another simple sugar. That spikes up your sugar again. Okay. So now your sugars are spiked. Insulin comes in, stores those sugars because your blood hates them. But then we don't even wait 2 hours after. We drinking coffee with what? Cream and what?
Sugar.
Again, spikes up your sugar again. So that's happening constantly throughout your day when you're eating these sugars, right? What your doctor is going to say is now insulin is not communicating with your cells.
Okay.
Okay. And so what that means is basically insulin is a lock key. Follow me real quick. Insulin comes in, turns this key, to the cell, which is right here, opens up the cell for the sugars to come in. Simple. Turnkey. Boom. Insulin comes in, opens the door, sugar goes into the cell. But they're saying that insulin is not communicating. That's what they're saying with the cell. I don't see it as that. What I've seen is when you have too much sugars in your bloodstream, then you have too much sugars in your cell because insulin stores it in your what? Your cells. Your cells also hate high levels of sugar. So what does your cells do? Your cells turn them into fat. So that's why you hear people say, I'm going on a keto diet, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to drop my sugars, because guess what? Fat don't make you fat. Sugar makes you fat. So your cells hate high amounts of sugar, so it turns sugar into fat.
Right. And point of quick question. So I keep hearing sugar. We're not only talking about that bag of like granulated sugar, that white sugar that we put in everything. You're talking about the wheats, the grains, all that stuff that kind of breaks down into sugar inside the body, correct?
Yes, and I'm talking about simple sugars. Yeah,
simple
and
sugar.
So and I'm gonna talk about how they hide it in your food as well, because they change names because they don't want you to know what sugar is, right?
Okay.
So as soon as your body gets too much sugar, it goes in your cells hate it, turns it into fat. And so I want you to think of this is your cell, and it doesn't have that much space. So after having too much sugar in the cell tells the body, we got no more space. So what does it do? It closes doors. The doors are closed, so it's not going to open when insulin tells it to open because it's full.
Right.
It's full of sugars because you just ate the croissant, drink the orange juice, cream and sugar, and guess what? It's too much sugars in the cell. So now you still got elevated amounts of blood sugar in your bloodstream. Okay?
Yep.
So now you got diabetes because you did this for the last 2 years. Now you're doing this for the last 2 years. We ain't even talking about lunch and dinner, which we going crazy with the lunch and dinner. We might get a PB&J sandwich real quick. We may get something else. Now you're doing this for the next 2-3 years. And then when you go to your doctor's like, yo, you waking up with 100, 200 on your blood sugar. That's crazy. You pre-diabetic, or you whatever they diagnose you with. They might be pre-diabetic or diabetic.
Right.
Yeah. That's when you get into what? Metformin, you start taking medication. I'm never saying don't take medication. Okay, never saying that. I'm not telling you that. I'm never going to tell you that. Don't ever think I'm saying that. But remember, your body needs sugar for energy. So one thing I tell people is like, if you're using energy, if you're like D who's walking around, D eat crazy. You know, D, but the thing about D is D will eat some home cooked food. Yeah. Like he ain't gonna eat Mickey D's and stuff like that. So it's not the best food, but people have to understand when you eat food that's cooked by someone and not processed crazy, it's gonna change a little bit. I won't get into that, but so if D's eating, and D snacker, he's a snacker. I know D's a snacker, but D doesn't eat that much. So what happens is D eats, right? But then D's gonna be like, what? Oh, I gotta go fix this. Oh, boom, boom, dropping off newspapers, bang, poetry. We moving. So what is he doing that whole time? Using sugars.
Right.
That's why your doctor says you must work out, because it's simple. If you don't use the sugars, it will be stored as fat. If you use the sugars, guess what? There's no more sugars in your bloodstream. There's no more sugars in your cells, because guess what? You're using them. But if you're not using them, if you're not doing anything, they get stored as fat. We copied it. That was simple, D. Hopefully
so let me ask you a question. When you said stores it as fat, half the problem in our community is also obesity. Mm-hmm. So now does this same fat also lead to us being, obese to a certain extent?
100%.
Right. So sometimes we're not just big boned. It has a lot to do with our diet, correct?
100%. Right. And I don't want people to ever think that I'm saying fat is unhealthy, but it is a precursor to telling you may have a problem, because that's one of the primary ways your body stores fat or creates fat It doesn't even create fat. Your body doesn't create new fat. All it does is stores fat into old fat. So this is what I'm telling people, like, the obesity problem is directly related to sugar. And the sugar company did a dope job at trying to stop that narrative. But go ahead, use my question.
Now, I was gonna say, I'm on the site right now. It just talks about diabetes. It says the central issue is lifestyle factors that drive obesity, which a recent study in the Journal of American Heart Association found may account for up to 50% of all type 2 diabetes cases in the United States. And about 55% of Black women and 38% of Black men have obesity, according to the American Heart Association data. So when we talk about those lifestyle factors, is that what you're referring to when you're talking about, what we have for breakfast, what we do throughout the course, do or don't do, in terms of the activities that we engage in throughout the course of the day, our snacks? You're right. I'll throw down on some honey buns, grab me a possible Snickers, or.
But then the reason why you and I know you're going somewhere, but the reason why you don't you still messing around, but you snack and then you won't eat for like 5 hours, 6 hours.
I might go a day without eating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
all right.
It's a cheat code you're operating under. It's a little cheat. It's not even a cheat code. It's just like you don't eat as much, so you're not lucky, but you're doing something right, which is you're moving more than you're eating sugar.
Okay.
So then you don't have you eating, and then as soon as you eat that sugar, you're using it. You're gone. You're moving around.
Now that worked in my 20s, 30s, 40s. Now I'm in my 50s and I'm starting to slow down a little bit. Tell me how that can come back and haunt me.
Yeah. So what happens is when we start getting to that age, people think your metabolism slows down. Now you slow down, right? And so that's two different things. And people say it's metabolism. That's don't ever let somebody tell you that. So what happens is you slow down. Once you slow down and you keep the same diet, what happens? You have the same diet, but you ain't working out as much. So those sugars are not going to be used. And what I say, if you're not using the sugar, they're going to be stored as fat. That's simple. And so that's what's happened to a lot of people. They're like, yo, my metabolism's slowing down because I'm getting older. Nah, unless you have a thyroid condition, and you can talk to your doctor about this, unless you have a thyroid condition, which that governs your metabolism, then that's what you're talking about. But other than that, you just stop walking around. You stop playing sports. You know what I mean? D was just talking about like, yo, we got to go play. That's why I tell people keep active, because your body will now when you're active, it does a lot of great things. But one of the things it does for diabetes, it lessens the opportunity for your body to store sugar as fat. That's what it does.
Okay. That's what's up. I had some more questions for you. All right. If I stopped eating sugar altogether, no candy bars, no honey buns, the wheat. I mean, I know we had Dr. Scott Whitaker on last year, I believe, and he said just stop eating grains. Or was it grains, or what was it?
Yeah.
I mean, diabetes is prevalent in my family. Let me back up. Is diabetes hereditary? Because people say, you Black, that's their friends in the family. Grandma had it, great grandma had it, granddaddy had it, daddy had it. Everybody has diabetes. Is it hereditary?
I can't make that assertion with no degree, right? So I'm not gonna say a lot, but I'm gonna tell you what they're doing now. What they're doing is called research based upon, because it's irresponsible when you say it's hereditary. It makes you not have to do any work. You're like, oh, it was just in my family. Man, I couldn't do nothing about it. No. So they're doing research called it's based upon how your DNA works. It's called DNA expression. All right. So you can research this. It's not me talking. It's called DNA expression. And it's under the umbrella of something else that I'm forgetting right now, but it's DNA expression. Okay. And so this is where you hear people talking about, oh, it's hereditary, right? And so when you research DNA expression, one thing I'm gonna make it real brief. One thing you're gonna realize is, yes, some things are hereditary, right? Well, basically, if you do not do anything to stop it, you will get it. But
no, keep going. Keep going. Don't let me stop.
So what DNA expression means is basically your family expresses disease usually the same way. If you put yourself in the same environment as your dad, your mom that got the same disease, you will usually get the same disease or something very similar, right? That's how your DNA expresses itself. But what governs DNA expression is environment. That's what they're doing. All right. They're understanding that now. It's called, oh my gosh, I'm going to remember in a second. But so the environment is what governs how DNA expresses itself. What do I mean by that? How you eat, how you sleep, stress, air quality, all that stuff, activity. That's the environment. That dictates how the DNA expresses itself. Okay? Or whether or not it expresses, rather, I'm sorry, whether or not it expresses. And that's, you could check that out, DNA expression. And I'm going to remember it in 2 seconds, man. But this is a new area they're doing. And we've been saying this. We've been saying this for years. Dr. Sabian been saying this in his own way. But we've been saying this for a while. We just noticed that it's like, nah, it doesn't make any sense because Joe Schmo doesn't eat like his dad and he don't got that problem. Or he ain't stressed like his pops and he ain't doing this. That don't make no sense. If he's going to get it, he's going to get it. But it's environment that changes that. Go ahead.
And I was going to talk about, when we talk about lifestyle activities, but let me back up. Gene expression is the process by which the instructions in our DNA are converted into a functional product, such as protein. When the information stored in our DNA is converted into instructions for making proteins or other molecules, it is called gene expression. It's a tightly regulated process that allows the cell to respond to its changing environment. So I get what you're saying. So earlier, I know on the other side I was on, it talked about lifestyle and cultural activities or the things that we do. So I talked about, people in the family having diabetes, but then at the same time, when I look at diet, some of the things that everybody was gorging on around the dinner table, around Thanksgiving, every Sunday we had, my grandmother would cook, a combination of American and Antiguan meals, and they had this huge soul food dinner after church every single Sunday. And I'm gonna tell you, boy, everything you could possibly imagine putting into your body, it was on that table. And watching people eat it every day, and you look at, how it manifests itself in the family, of course, a strong percentage of the folks found out they had diabetes. So was it passed down for generation, physically or genetically? No, it had more to do with traditions that we passed down from year to year. Folks call it soul food. My grandparents lived off of this for 100 years. This is how the slaves survived. It doesn't necessarily mean that the food is healthy. It just means it's sustainable enough to keep us alive. Am I wrong? Or check me. I'm not.
No, you're right. You're right. And it just kept us alive, but the conditions were different. When you out in the blazing sun picking cotton, you're burning calories. And then the process of making food is different. So we used to make one meal a day. You know how when you made that meal, it took about 6 hours. Right? And she ain't have no snacks for you. You remember growing up, we ain't really snack like that.
No snacks.
And people, I'm younger, but my mom is a first generation West Indian. We don't have snacks in the house. We don't have snacks. So we had one meal usually. Until we got a job, then we bought snacks and stuff, but we didn't have snacks. So that's why I grew up around in Boston in a very West Indian neighborhood. And so we all had one meal. We were just hoping to get them waiting home like Jesus, 8 o'clock. Hoping we got home enough and our brothers and sisters didn't eat everything. And so when you ate a meal, the culture is different. Oh, my grandma lived till 100. Yes, she made it from scratch. One. Number two, I want you guys to understand the sugar epidemic that happened in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even before that, 50s, which is now you have refined sugars, used to make everything out of wheat. It wasn't sugar. It was big bags of sugar, but you didn't have, at least your flour wasn't refined flour. And so she made everything from scratch. It's different. And it took a long time, so you only ate one meal. Now we eat 4 meals. We got restaurants everywhere. And so now you have a situation in which there's an epidemic on our hands with obesity and diabetes because of that. So I need people to understand that.
Right. Let's see. For anybody watching, if you have any questions, hit us in the comment section. Yeah, hit us in the comment section. Again, it's an open conversation. Anything we do is never a private or personal conversation. It's a community, family type of conversation. So if you have questions, if you have any information you'd like to contribute, If we said something that's not completely accurate, feel free to correct us. There are no egos here. We just want to get this information out. We'll be back every Wednesday at 7:30 talking about different aspects of Black health, because if we don't talk about Black health, then we're basically saying our Black lives ain't really mattering. There's nothing more important than Black health. You can talk Black economics. You can talk about Black politics. All that stuff stems from how healthy we keep ourselves. So with that being said, let's get back to it, Justin. Let's see any other questions that I may have for you. Can I reverse diabetes? There are people who have said that they've been completely cured of diabetes. I followed this regimen. I no longer have diabetes in my body. Can we reverse diabetes? Can we completely cure ourselves?
I mean,
based on your perspective.
My experience. Listen. I'm talking. Yeah, all right. So I have doctors in my family. So when they watch us, they be like, "You can't say that." Like I don't have a thing, so I'm not gonna say I can cure or revert. What you can do is lower your blood sugars. So listen, diabetes is high blood sugar. I'm not gonna say anything but this. You can lower your own blood sugars. How? Very simple. We stop eating refined sugars. We work out for at least 20 minutes a day, right? If you stop with just the refined sugars, pasta, the white breads, white pasta, the juices, and the candies, we eliminate that. You can now see a reduction in your blood sugar. That's simple. And then you work out for 20 minutes a day. I promise you, you will lower your blood sugar. And then you ask your doctor, very simply, is my blood sugar low enough for me to get off the medication? And then if he or she says, yeah, you can, or some doctors are like, no, you got to stay on the medication, then that's the situation. There's type 1 diabetes, which is a totally different monster than anything else. But type 2 usually you can lower your own blood sugar, and therefore ask your physician whether or not if it's low enough for you and you've managed it well enough. You've managed it. You've been responsible enough to be able to get off your medication.
Right. Okay. Now, see, Bobby Frost Graham says you can't. I believe you can. Halisi Moyle says, let's get it. Here we go. He says you can't. I believe you can. Let's see. Halisi says a total peace out, gentlemen. Glad y'all participating. A total lifestyle change will lower your blood sugar. However, some of the resulting effect can't be reversed. Okay.
Yeah. And so the resulting effects of diabetes is a lot of things, right? They're seeing now research that Alzheimer's is another byproduct of diabetes. It's a sugar problem in the brain. That's what they're doing their own research. I didn't say this, right? Neuropathy, right? Neurological issues. We'll not go too in depth. So, obesity. The resulting effects of diabetes can always be reversed by your body when your body's in the right environment. Again, I want you guys to think of the body, how you first were born. If the body knows how to create everything in your body, okay, and to the point where it's a healthy body and has been able to sustain it from birth till now, people have to understand your DNA is coded for it to survive. So whatever happens in your body, not saying everything, but most things that happen when the right environment, your body can now get your body itself back to what you call homeostasis, right? And so some people say no. I can't say yes or no, but in my experience, again, I've been in personal training for 7 years. I've been teaching nutrition, plant-based nutrition for 5.
Okay.
And most people that come to me, I'll say 30% of people I've worked with that have diabetes. When given the prescribed diet modifications, lifestyle modifications, they've lowered their blood sugar to a rate that's under what you would call being required to be diabetic, right? And so they have done it. I haven't done anything, right? The doctor has said, okay, your sugars are low to the point where you may be able to get off medication, but we're going to keep you off this. And so
someone is at the front door.
The byproducts, they may say is not able to get cured or reversed or whatever the case may be, but understanding the body has made itself, right? This sustain itself for as long as you've lived. And so it has the coding system to now what you would call, and I don't want to use the word, but heal itself. So I think it's important that we understand that too, because epigenetics is what it's called. So research this, you guys. I don't talk just because I'm talking. I watch some videos. No, this is pathology, pathophysiology. It's in the books, right? I'm reading the books that our doctors are reading. I'm not reading something or I'm regurgitating something I watch some guy say, right? And so in the world of epigenetics is what I want to go back to, is where they're studying how our genes express themselves and why they express themselves that way. So epigenetics, go research that. And so going back to diabetes, right? When we look at fat, right, we hear about the keto diet, right? And so this is huge now, like keto, take away all your carbs, high protein diet, fat, right? And so we have to understand that like our body needs sugar regardless, right? It needs glucose regardless for almost every activity. Specifically, brain activity is really your day-to-day where most of your glucose is used, is in your brain, right? And so when we use glucose in our brain, or we reduce our sugars to where we're not eating any sugars, we have some problems, right? We'll get a little sluggish. We won't be able to remember certain things. We won't be as quick on things, but then our body regulates itself. But now going back to how the body stores sugar into fat after long periods of time, right? What happens is when that fat turns into fat, right? And then we do ourselves a favor. We go into what's called a keto diet. When you drop your sugar levels, your body has no more sugars to use as energy. So it has to have another source. Your proteins and your fats are both sources they use, but it's easier for the body to change fat into usable energy. And so when we kind of break down fats, what happens is we turn them into what you call ketone bodies. So that's why you hear the keto diet. So when you use or you like deplete your sugars, or you do a carb reduction diet or carb elimination diet, your body has nothing else to use but fats as energy. Okay? So that means that all that fat, all that sugar that turns into fat is now being broken down to what you call ketone bodies for your body to use for its daily activities. I'm trying to make it simple. Let's not make it crazy. We have to understand that first and foremost, diabetes to me is a lifestyle disease. And so when we change our lifestyle, reduce our sugar intake, our processed sugar and refined sugar intake, we add 10 minutes, 20 minutes of activity into our life, we're going to see a reduction in sugar in our bloodstream. Okay? Then, if we're not doing that, what happens is what? Our body stores sugar into what? Fat. But now we change our diet. We're doing better. We're dropping our sugar levels. Your body starts using fat as energy. And so this is not something that I'm making up. So now I'm going to explain the science real quick, not get too complicated. So when your body eats food and carbs, it goes into a fed state, right? That means there's sugars in the blood that has sugars to use. The cells are grabbing sugar. Insulin is opening up cells for sugar to be used. Now, what happens when you stop eating sugars, right? They say, okay, I'm going to go into a keto diet. They stop eating sugar. The opposite of insulin, there's always an opposite to every hormone, right? Insulin stores sugar. This other hormone called glucagon. Again, I'm saying these words so you guys don't think I'm making something up. You can research this yourself. Glucagon does the opposite of what? Insulin. So if insulin stores, glucagon releases sugar. The only way glucagon can come in a situation, it can't come when insulin's in the bloodstream. They don't work together. They got beat. They can't be in the same spot at the same time. They can't. It's when your body has more hours of prolonged starvation. What does that mean? let's say four, they usually say 4 to 6 hours. I would even go 6 to 8 hours of not eating is when your body's sugar levels drop. Then guess what? Because your body needs energy and sugars, it has to get it from somewhere. So if you have no sugars in your bloodstream because you didn't eat for 6 to 8 hours, your body then has to go and release the sugars from your cells. And that comes in the form of glucagon. So the glucagon opens up the cells to release the sugars. It's usually in your liver, though. That's where you store glycogen. That's what you store. So I'm using these words because people can go back and be like, he don't know nothing. This is all, listen, I don't talk YouTube. I don't talk, oh, Dr. Sabi said this. This is words you can look up. Glucagon, glycogen. Okay, glucagon comes to release the sugars. Only way that happens is 6 to 8 hours of prolonged starvation, right? I'm giving y'all gems. So once that happens, you release the sugars, your body starts using the sugars. Guess what? Now your bodies don't got no more sugar, stored. So it has to use what? Fat can turn into ketones. Ketones, short, and you hear keto, right? The keto diet, that's why they call it the keto diet. Because what replaces sugar for your body as energy is ketones. So that's what your body turns fat into. For usable energy is fat turns into ketones. And so that's why you people, I'm going on the keto diet, because now your body has to break down fat and then you start losing fat. That's why you start losing weight, because you're using fat as energy. But that happens when you drop your sugar levels. And so your body has to use fat as energy. Simple and plain. This is why I'm saying these things, because I'm not going to talk from a place of ignorance, right? I'm going to talk from a place of experience and science. So you can go to your doctor and say, so what about glucagon? Go to your doctor and ask him about glucagon. How can I access my glucagon, my hormone glucagon? And he's going to be like, whoa, what you was on YouTube? What you talking about, right? You tell him that, he's going to be like, then he's going to have to explain this, or he or she's going to have to explain it to you, right? They're going to have to explain to you how the body works. And then you're going to know, oh, shoot, this is easy. All I got to do is stop eating the sugars as much. Boom, I can drop my sugars, then start using. Okay, this is simple. But when they're not informing you and they're telling you it's an insulin, you have to go to an endocrinologist because insulin isn't working, then you think you have to stay on metformin for the rest of your life. And I'm not saying you don't. You consult with your physician, but I'm telling you how the body works. Not me, what their books are telling me. That's it. Not nothing else.
So real quick, let me go to the sidelines real quick. Let's see. Halisi Moyle says a total lifestyle change will lower your blood sugar. However, some of the resulting effects can't be reversed. Bobby Frost says, are they still eating regular American food? Let's come back to the American food. I think that's probably the most dangerous thing. It's like playing Russian roulette with your life when you look at, regular American food. If you're going to the supermarket, when they talk about food deserts or food apartheid, I think we got to come back to that one because he's on point with that. Halisi says nerve damage, etc. Dis-ease is actually a combination word and not one word. Cannot exist in an alkaline environment. It goes on to say, I love that Justin is giving references to your statements. By you doing that, those listening will have a point of reference for the follow-up research. And research is everything. Bobby Frost says he has this stuff. And Halisi says gyms. Okay. So what lifestyle modifications, when you go to a doctor, you should have some information in terms of what types of lifestyle modifications you should make. Let me know if I'm off, if I'm like throwing you off in terms of what you were prepared to talk about. Losing weight, exercising, just if you can just reiterating all the different things that people can do in terms of modifying their lifestyle or making lifestyle adjustments.
I'm gonna go give you the whole gamut of a plan I gave people, because I'm at that point where I'm tired of people getting sick off of something that to me it made sense, right? So first thing in the morning, either you're not eating, or if you do eat, you can eat a protein, right? And I don't usually recommend protein in the morning, but a protein like your meats, right? Your eggs, right? No syrup on that thing, right? The first thing in the morning, you should first of all be drinking water, because guess what? Water is going to help move that blood sugar, right, as well. So you don't really want to eat any sugars in the morning, right? Your largest meal of the day is at lunch. Between breakfast and lunch, y'all, right? You want a 4-hour gap in between your meals. If you can't do that, you get dizzy and stuff and lightheaded. You can snack in between with fruits. Okay? You can snack in between that with fruits. But again, protein in the morning, 4-hour gap. Then you eat your largest meal of the day, which is at lunch. And at lunch, y'all go crazy. I ain't telling you you gotta be perfect. If you used to eat your collard, I mean, you're I don't know if you're Jamaican, you're Black American, or you're from the South, whatever. But if you're used to eating that mac and cheese and then the grits, whatever the case is, I don't even know people eat anymore. To be honest, I can't even lie. Or the Spanish rice, or whatever the case is. What I'm gonna do, and the cheat code to that is add raw greens. Okay.
Add what? Can you repeat that? Add what?
Raw greens, right?
Okay.
Your mustard greens, your Swiss chard, all that stuff, your spinach, your arugula, those things, when you add those raw greens, they slow down the release of sugar to your bloodstream because they have fiber in them. And fiber is insoluble. Okay, so if you're going to do it, I ain't going to stop you, but add raw greens. You say, Justin, I can't take it. Okay, you saute that. May you steam it a little bit, not too much. It's too rough for me. Put some sea salt on that bad boy. Not too much, but eat the raw greens with that meal. Okay? Last meal of the day, eat at like 7, 8 the latest. Right? And that has to equal a small amount of carbs. When I mean a small, handful of carbs. And these are for people that are suffering from diabetes. Handful of carbs. Again, what's going to happen as a result, I've went through this, is you're going to get lightheaded sometimes. If you do, that's when you turn to fruits, okay? You turn to fruits, smoothies, and stuff like that, right? You got Self Juices, Garden Eden, Hogitos, I can't pronounce it. It's on Main Street near the courthouse, another smoothie spot. Then you got the one on State Street. What's it called? One on State Street.
We got the juice. 876 State Street. Yeah.
You got Bumpies with all the juices that they have in there.
In Agawam, there's another. You got what is it? Fire and Water in Agawam, the vegetarian restaurant there.
Man, Flame on Vegan.
Yeah.
Flame on Vegan. So you got options. I don't want to hear nothing. You got another place in Tower Square called Revitalized Superfoods. I'm giving you all of it, right? And so you get the smoothies from there, right?
Yeah.
But with the nighttime, handful of carbs, and then when you get that tired feeling, make sure you prepare. Grab some trail mix or grab some fruit so that when you start feeling that lightheaded feeling, you eat a fruit. The reason why I say don't drink an orange juice is because that's going to spike your sugar up again. All right. You want to get fresh cold pressed juices. You can get it at Self, right on Bay Street, right? You can get at Hogitos on Main Street as well. They do juices as well, right? Or you can get some. It's called Raw. The brand is called Raw. You can get that from Bumpies. You can get the raw ones. So the thing about it is when you feel that way, that's when your blood sugars are dropping low. And so your body's telling you, yo, man, my head's hurting. You know what I mean? That's what you got to get if you're a person that's not used to eating or cooking your own food. But again, proteins in the morning, right? 4-hour gap in between your meals. Then your lunch is your biggest meal. You can go crazy, but add greens to it, okay? And then another 4-hour gap. You have your last meal around 7, 8. Small amount of carbs, palm full, right?
Yep.
And then making sure that you have more protein than that. So that is one of the ways in which somebody that's really eating crazy. I'm thinking they're McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King. They're eating that and they're trying to reverse it. This is an option for them to get a little bit better. It's going to drop their sugars a little bit lower.
Or at least set you on that path.
It sets you on that path. There's other plans that work. I've seen it. I've got the test. Oh, my blood sugar is low, all that great stuff. But this one is a little bit easier, you know what I mean, for people to kind of maintain. So I want people to be responsible for themselves. And then when you start seeing the sugar levels drop, really have a conversation with your doctor about what the best next option is. Because ultimately they're going to help you and guide you to managing it for the rest of your life. Because diabetes isn't the problem. It's the complications after D, you know. You know what I mean? You understand, seen it, like
I've seen it.
complications. My dad has two nubs. They cut off half of his finger. You know what I mean? My grandmother, they amputated her foot.
They said diabetes is a progressive disease. If it's left unchecked, it can gradually lead to life-threatening complications, some of which are kidney damage, cardiovascular disease, eye problems, hearing impairments, and more. Plus, having diabetes may lead to psychological issues like stress and depression, which are often overlooked. And we'll talk about stress, depression on another show. We'll be talking about mental health. But I've watched people go from a toe to a foot, cut up to the knee, legs gone, and all they had to do, to an extent, change their diet, and adjust it, make some lifestyle modifications. Now, let me ask you this. There are folks who, some folks who don't really see doctors on a regular basis, so they're not even aware of, that they may have, early signs of diabetes. What are some of the symptoms of high blood sugar level or diabetes, or whatever it's called?
Again, I can't say something about that.
Yeah,
I'm not a physician. Physicians usually tell you.
In that case, let me read.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Read it. Here. Read straight off that.
All right. It's straight off the site. Here we go. What are the symptoms of a high blood sugar level? There are several signs of an increased blood sugar level. It includes, but not limited to, an increase in thirst, urinating frequently, nausea, dry mouth, fruit-like breath odor, fatigue, blurred vision, rapid heartbeat. However, if you do see these signs, they do not necessarily mean a high blood sugar level. There could be other reasons as well. You should visit a medical facility for proper diagnosis. So it does say that.
Yeah. So when you're thirsty, you're dry. It's because, again, your body hates high levels of sugar, so it tries to dilute it with water. And so what happens is, real quick, it dropped. If you're doing really bad, you're getting into diabetic problems where it's ketoacidosis. They'll tell you. So they should say that. And then urinating frequently is because they're trying to pee out the sugar as well. So those are the ones where if you're doing that constantly, your sugars are high. And so if you didn't see a doctor, it's time to see a doctor, because what the doctor has and that you don't have is test. And if you're older, meaning you're over the age of 60, right? Even 50s and 40s, 30s.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, especially once you hit your 40s, just get it checked out. It doesn't matter. Just get it checked out. I know most folks don't like doctors, like I don't like doctors and all that other stuff. But you know what? Just get it checked out. That way you get a head start. It's better to be proactive than to be reactive. Mm-hmm. But again, it boils down to lifestyle adjustments, diet changes. And I think no matter how much I hate vegetables, my girl will tell you I'm still trying to experiment with different vegetables and see what I like. I love collard greens. I eat it all day. But you have to make those changes. And Bobby Frost said it earlier. He said, a lot of people fear eating healthy, but want to be healthy. I'm going to raise my hand. And I'm going to say guilty as charged. When I read that, it kind of stung a little bit. I was like, yeah, that sounds like me. In reference to the restaurant at the different locations people can go to, he says better off, thank you, but sometimes it's better off making it at home. And I think that's one of the reasons why I appreciate Garden of Eden, because they cook it as if you're cooking at home. It's slow, it's healthy, there's no alternatives, and the owner doesn't play with the ingredients. He also says those places that add sugar, and they don't have different options of sugar for their drinks. So those are some things to be concerned about. A lot of stuff you can do at home, but if you find an authentic, healthy restaurant, make it home until make that place home until you can go home and do what you got to do. And real quick, Justin, I just got to do this real quick. Where are they? Quick announcement, because we get paid to do that. On Saturday, February 19th, you encourage everybody to come out, check out Self-Portrait Unframed. It's a stage play written, directed, and produced by Ayaba Ibo Mandingo, presented by Afro Renaissance and Ayaba Arts. Saturday, February 19th, showtime is at 7 p.m. Tickets $15. Takes place at Pamusa, the Pan-African Historical Museum. Again, the city of Springfield has had a Pan-African Historical Museum for the past 28 years. Located 1500 Main Street, that would be Tower Square, downtown Springfield. Come check it out. You know, take a shot. Make sure people come check it out. It's a really, 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 really dope, phenomenal stage play. It's a one-man show, so come check it out. I mentioned Garden of Eden. Don't forget, every Saturday they have Soup Saturdays with the folks in the podcast She Thinks Pod. Every Saturday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., 439 White Street, Springfield, Mass. It's the Garden of Eden in Springfield. It's a pretty dope restaurant. Healthy food. They have Soup Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Go check it out and get involved. All right, y'all. Back to our regular scheduled program. We have about 3.5 more minutes, Justin. What else you got for us?
Yeah, man, just take responsibility. This is a very crazy time for our community, losing a lot of people that are vital. And one thing that D told me one time, literally talk about it all the time, and it just is one of the craziest things he caught me with. He said, "You are old, and you're gonna get where I'm going with this." He was like, "You're old," and as we kept on losing our leaders, I was like, yeah, so it's time for us to step up, right? And there's a lot of us with information. There's a lot of us that are savants in what we do. And it's not, nobody's passing the pendulum, nothing. It's time to take control of our community, right? We don't have any control over it. It's time to take control of our, I'm talking to people that are 20s, right? It's time like you partied. It's good. You're good. Now, and my responsibility is to bring you this information because I've lived it for 7 years, and now I'm watching people pass away at 50 and 60, which makes no sense to me at all, from things that they could have prevented or lifestyle changes they could have made. Not saying they prevented, but they could have made some lifestyle changes that may or may not have changed the outcome. But I really want people to take control over their life. And as we get older, we have to understand that we also have a responsibility to our community.
Absolutely.
In whatever we do, you know what I mean? My area is health. And so that's why I'm really coming here, because it's at that point where we're losing leaders, and now we need more people to step up. And that might be off topic, but the youngins that are 20 years old, because D's been doing this work, gang prevention, gang task force, he's been doing this before anything, right? And you were young. You were quote unquote.
It was way before the gray hair.
It was way before that. In your generation, what the thing is gets me annoyed is like your generation was doing stuff at 18, 19, 20, and our kids are still kids at 28. You know what I mean? Like I'm 30. Like the Black Panthers were Fred Hampton was 21?
No, Fred Hampton started. He completely changed the scope of the Chicago NAACP by the time he was 15. He started leading the Black Panthers at the age of 17. Kids who stepped into grown men role. When you look at the sit-ins in North Carolina, when you look at the freedom marches from the 60s, when you look at the slavery revolts on the plantations, those weren't old folks, man.
Mm-mm.
They were young people who stepped into leadership roles. And we have so many people who could step into leadership roles. It's like, what does Black health have to do with leadership? Absolutely everything. Because as you stated, we have to control our own narrative. And if the old heads have gone the last 20, 30 years without doing it, well, doesn't matter how old you are. If a 5-year-old steps up and says, yo, it's time to eat healthy, get your life right, well, you need to stop and pay attention, because somebody got to get the message out there. Mm-hmm. It's what it is.
Mm-hmm. And it's time, and it's going to start off with our kids. And if your kid is still in school, let me tell you, Liz Ogilvy did a great job with the school department, but we're going to pressure them some more. And the pressure is, we know we're not supposed to be eating. We know exactly what we're not supposed to be eating. The research says it. It doesn't. There's no more pontificating on what's right and wrong. What your kids should be eating is fruits and vegetables and some other things as well. We're not going to go too in depth, but they know what they shouldn't be eating, and they're still feeding our kids that. So your responsibility as a parent is to raise your kids in the way that you want them so they don't depart. So you got to take control. Stop blaming teachers for this, and that you control your kids and what they eat, and you control the school department. And when you fight long enough, they'll get it. And that's my new thing, is making sure that we change that in the schools. We ain't gonna be eating the same things anymore. It's more on the path of understanding that what we eat changes our mental as well. So our kids are learning at different levels, because also they're eating food that cannot disturb that as well.
And you know what? On a closing note, I'm going to say they aren't forcing our kids to eat anything. My kid's in a public school system, and she goes to school every day with a backpack with a lunch inside. You know, we give them the breakfast for their leave, so we don't have to get their breakfast. She has her own lunch, and her mom makes her a healthy lunch that she eats every day, while the rest of the kids are getting school lunches. So we have control over our lives. We have control over our families. We have to stop acquiescing to this mainstream mindset that says they control everything about us. We have control, and it's all about making that decision. You know, same thing, conversation we have with diabetes. If you're fearful of it, if you're worried about it, well, it's time for a diet change and making some major lifestyle modifications. And I got the last thing from the sidelines. Bobby Frost Graham says, eating healthy is expensive. It is expensive, because everything healthy is going to cost 2 arms, 3 legs, and a half a brain. All the junk food, they make it completely accessible for you. When he talks about the genius of the sugar industry and all those other industry, all them other folks who heavily influence what we eat every day, they make sure their food is inexpensive and accessible. Why? Because there's billions of dollars to be made in the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry. So as long as you're healthy, somebody else is going to be wealthy. If you want to slow their wealth down, get your health together. And I'm talking to myself as I say that. This is Black Health. Let's talk about it. We'll be here on Wednesday evenings at 7:30 doing what we do today. We'll be talking about it. Justin, anything you want to say before we close out?
Thank you again for the platform, D. We want to make sure that you guys get this information. So spit out some topics as well that you guys want to hear about. We'll try to get the professionals related to that topic and make sure we give you a show. Try to do at least once a month. You know what I mean? But give us a topic, and we'll definitely help and try to get the professionals related to that topic to give you the information you need.
All right, y'all. This is Black Health. My name is D. Moss. That's Justin Yard. Thank you to everybody who participated in this conversation, and thank you for everyone who took a few moments to listen in and learn something different. All right, y'all. We out. Peace.
Peace.